you have to be okay reinventing yourself and thinking, okay, this is where I am now. Because remember what I said earlier, things will never be changing as slowly as they are now.
Wow. Carina Diamond, take a seat in the suite. How are you doing today? It's so great to see you.
Woohoo! I'm having a fantastic day. I'm very happy to be here with you, Tina.
Karina, seriously. Okay. I've been looking forward to this conversation, not just for months. Okay. Literally years. Okay. Everybody, this has been like years in the making. It's been, I have so many people that I've wanted to welcome here in the suite. Karina is one of them. We cross paths at so many events. We have been to so many things together. We've been in Nashville together. We were in Florida for Advise-On together, and especially if you're listening and you're women in wealth management, really someone like Carina Diamond is an honor to finally get to be here in the suite with her. And the other thing that I love, so here's the juxtaposition of this, Karina, is like, I'm so glad I didn't have you in the suite, like even 6 months ago, because what we're going to talk about today, we're some new developments. So there's some really, really exciting things happening in your world, and GFP is at the heart of it. For those listeners right now who don't know GFP, I would love for you to tell the story.
Yeah, absolutely. So for about 47 years, we have been in Cleveland, Ohio. We were started by Sally Gries, and the firm was known as Gries Financial for many years. And very philanthropic firm, very involved in the community, ultra high net worth space, lots of expertise in the private investment side. And I had known the folks that worked there for many years, and they reached out to me a couple of years ago. We started having conversations. And then when an opportunity came up for leadership, and they were looking for a little bit of transformation, a little bit of a change agent. And they called me, and here I am.
I mean, who better than you? Sam Bojarski, senior reporter for CityWire RAA. He broke the news on April 1st. And we have a Slack channel here intentionally where we're, monitoring the news, and we're giving high fives, and we're giving yes, this on April 1st, Sam broke the news, CityWire, not only what was this promotion, I think, fortuitous and really, I think, a match made in heaven for you. But you also announced the rebrand. You announced the promotion to CEO. So I first wanted to discuss the rebrand of Gries Financial Partners. You had just talked about Sally, the founder, and all of that, because a lot of the firms that we work with have had rebranding, like what I'll call pull and push struggles. Like, should we do it? Shouldn't we do it? And I think who better than you kind of coming right off the heels of that and making an intentional move to that. So why did you rebrand?
Yeah, well, I mean, no one probably more than me appreciates the value of a brand and of a female-run organization. So Sally was absolutely ahead of her time, and she still sees clients, so she's pretty amazing. But the firm has grown, obviously, and we're no longer a family office that mainly works with friends and family. And there's pluses and minuses, right, to having your name on the door. We collectively wanted to express that we have a whole team here now, and of different generations, of different expertise, and different last names. So we didn't want to completely abandon it. But GFP, Gries Financial Partners, we shortened it. And you're not giving yourself any credit, but intentionally was a huge part of that rebrand. So we'll always be very grateful to you and your team.
We appreciate the mention here. I think the big takeaway is you are someone that has a brand ethos built in your DNA. You understand it, you get it, no matter what, umbrella, what company that Carina Diamond has been in, you've always had an overall awareness. And for anybody listening here, a brand is the perception of what people think about you when you're not in the room. The brand is like, oh, somebody hears your name. GFP Private Wealth, and what are the very things, what are the very attributes? You had touched upon Sally Gries and her incredible legacy. You guys, if you want to Google her, this is an extraordinary. And Carina, I thank you so much for introducing, her and the GFP story of Sally Gries and her incredible legacy. Everybody listening, it's GRIES, and she is, it's amazing. This woman is a pioneer in Ohio who built the first wholly owned, and I say wholly also too, women owned RIA. Alongside her late husband, they have done incredible philanthropy work. You can look at them on YouTube. I mean, this is like, I'm in awe of just, her vision, and I'm in awe of you because approaching this rebrand with this, I don't think that there's been an origin story and a foundational story of an RIA that's been more prominent than Sally Gries. So, how do you honor her vision while bringing your own leadership and perspective? Because you're CEO now of GFP Private Wealth.
Yeah. So, I mean, Sally and I are in frequent contact, and she's always very careful to say, I'm not sticking my nose in. Observed this, or you might want to know this, or may I introduce you to this person? Because she's extremely well connected and on a lot of boards, and like I said, extremely philanthropic. But I like to think of it as I really have just taken the foundations that she and others built, and then just take it to the next level. Because the fact of the matter is, 2025, we're in a completely different era. Things will never be happening as slowly as they are now, which is very,
Very interesting word.
you know, think about that. And so, she and our chairman, Rob Herman, they brought me in because they trusted me to be able to take the firm to the next level, and make some difficult decisions. The rebrand was a fun decision, investing in a lot of young talent, investing in a lot of technology and other things. So it was really just a natural next step, I think, for Sally and for me.
Yeah. And I want to talk a little bit about that technology because, again, I look at you as like a leading indicator. Again, whenever we see each other at events or whenever I see you on a panel and I'm and I'm fangirling you and your audience, you are always talking about how you're leading the future. But before that, I don't want to gloss over this because you were promoted as CEO. We've got a lot of female leaders and male leaders, mentors, sponsors, ambassadors, people who have gone up to bat for other people when they're not in the room. Here you are, you start at Gries and, as chief growth officer, and in true Carina Diamond style, you were promoted to CEO after 5 months. And a lot of our conversations here in the suite have been about promotion, have been about stretch assignments, have been about negotiating, have been about putting yourself in a position of, being comfortable and uncomfortable. So the question that I've been dying to ask you is whether or not that this was an intentional decision. Like, did you go in there and say, okay, here it is, I'm coming in as chief growth officer and taking a look around and saying, yeah, I could definitely, I could lead this company. Was that intentional or did the opportunity just fall in your lap? I think can't wait. You guys got to be hanging on for the answer to this. This is going to be really good.
It happened organically. I mean, really, I know when I was speaking with Rob Herman, again, our chairman, originally about joining, and he said, look, he said, we really want what the Carina Diamond brand stands for. And so, the work with young people, bringing them into the business, the internships, of course, the promotion of women, as well as, being good at organic growth and inorganic growth. But he just said, we like what you stand for. We want more of that at the firm. So when the opportunity arose and I was asked, I said yes.
I love that organic, origin story. I think when you're in a really good place, that people feel it. I'm about to celebrate my 3rd-year anniversary here at Intentionally. We just celebrated our 4th-year anniversary. We've been in existence for 4 years. It feels like much longer than that. But I think, if you surround yourself with the right people, make sure that you're in the right environment. The right environment allows you to do your best work.
100%. I mean, that's what they say about culture. And I found the culture here to have no sharp elbows, feel very welcoming from day one. That was very important to me when I was making my decision to join. And found a lot of people that really had so much talent and just were ready for the next evolution, the next step in the evolution, I should say, of the firm. And I was just very humbled in a lot of ways to be asked to take on that role.
Well, congratulations again. We were really excited about it. We were just, in our Slack channel with our emoji hands up, raise the roof, and confetti for you. Um, Also, too, one of the things that I wanted to talk about is you can't have a conversation about innovation and leading the future unless you're talking about tech tools and specifically AI. Yes, you guys, we are going to absolutely mention AI. But one of the things that you've been able to do is you've been able to engineer in an innovative environment, whether or not that you're talking about tech, Carina, or whether or not you're laddering like new talent and really helping to shape the development of the future of wealth management. So, like, what are you seeing right now? What's in your toolbox right now? What's in an advisor's toolbox right now, ideally?
So I think whether you're an advisor or you're in leadership or both, you have to really be always have to be looking around the corner and what's next. And I mean, AI isn't what's next, it's what's here now. So I think, the normal technology is table stakes. We're big Advise-On users, but we've been adding on, things like, just little things like Calendly, things like Jump AI, things like that, some tax sure prep and some tax AI related software as well. But I want to take it further than that. And I recently chatted with someone who consults on AI to advisors, and I started by saying, well, tell me what the best firms are doing. And then I caught myself and I said, strike that. Tell me what the best firms should be doing. And he started laughing because he said there aren't a lot of best practices yet. And people really are afraid of it or really aren't using it. And I said, let me tell you something. I said, I got my pants rolled up. I'm jumping in already. I'm getting more than my feet wet here. I am very excited. And so we are literally starting to use it in a lot of ways. We're bringing in a consultant to kind of teach us some basic things about LLMs and how to use them. And I think it's really exciting everybody. So who would think that the CEO is bringing this in and it's not like bubbling up from the bottom? But our younger team is all over it, and they have the energy, and they know where it's at. We formed recently. I was frustrated by too many emails. And I said, guys, I'm getting way too many emails, and a lot of them are from everyone here, not even outside. So we formed this. We called it, inelegantly, the Email Efficiency Task Force, and they solved the problem in about 2 meetings.
Oh, I'm curious.
It
How
was
did they solve the problem?
kind of incredible. Well, using Advise-On a lot more to store
Yeah, yeah.
information. But the bigger point is that now they came to me and said, we just want to make this the efficiency task force. And I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. And now we're bringing in some of the AI tools to that. And really nothing is off limits. And we're trying to look at all aspects of the business, do some priorities that, probably start with SOPs and, things that are, more behind the scenes. But I think the sky's the limit. And I don't really care what other firms are doing. I'm going to be ahead of that curve.
Oh my God. I love that. I so love that. Unapologetically putting the stake in the ground. I'm going to be ahead of the curve. A big shout out to our friends at Vizon, where I saw you on that panel, talking about talent and talking about leading the future. I think it's so smart to hire a consultant. My thing, Carina, is like, I don't understand because, I worked in an RIA for almost 10 years, right? Whereas a partner, and we sold that firm for succession and then went into agency work. And that was about, almost 8 years ago, 9 years ago. And I don't understand why more leaders just don't have a conversation around it. Like, just because you have a consultant and you have a conversation about it doesn't mean that you have to actually do it, but you don't know what you don't know. So I give kudos to you. You and Kelly, my business partner, our CEO and founder of this firm, also too, is building her own chat GPTs. And so none of us knew how to, none of us grew up with this stuff. And it kind of reminds me of like the internet, and it reminds me of social media, and it reminds me of podcasting. It reminds me of video. Like there was just like an open field, and you have a choice whether or not that you're going to lean into that or not. But I just love to experiment on myself too, and do a little training. I did complete the Google AI certification course from Coursera. You guys, anybody listening, it's $49. Get it on Coursera. It will take you about 13 hours to do. But so refreshing. I love how you think, Carina.
It's the kind of thing, once you see what it can do, you can't unsee it.
That's a brilliant insight there. Yeah, it's like once you cross the chasm, you can't go back. What about, are there any other trends that you're seeing? Again, I just saw you on the Advise On panel. And are there any other like bigger shifts or anything that you see coming? Obviously, AI, we identified that. But I'm really curious, because you're building a young team, you're very innovative, you're incorporating the latest technology, and we've got a lot of listeners here.
It's back to succession. I think more than ever, and I think leaders, and myself included. I'm always looking for more and better ideas on how to incent young talent, attract young talent, keep young talent. I think we're doing a good job on those things, but I'm never satisfied. I'm always nervous. I'm always uncomfortable. Like, what are we, are we good enough are we good enough to remain the employer of choice for these people and that we're training and investing in? We don't want them, obviously to leave because there's something we didn't do. So I'm always, keeping an open door and, walking around and talking to people and just making myself accessible. I just to understand what I might be missing. And one thing that's popped up recently from several of our younger team, they're so brilliant and there's so much potential that it's really awe-inspiring to me. But one thing I started to hear, a common thing, was that they want training, they want leadership training, they want management training, because them watching us is not always the best way, because many of us in leadership, we didn't have any training. We figured it out the hard way. We got our butts kicked, and then we were being trained by people who got their butts kicked, and maybe that wasn't the best way to learn how to lead. I had to undo things, some of the things that I did in the past, because they maybe weren't always the kindest or the most effective. And you really have to kind of peel that back. And so I think one big area is looking for that leadership giving them the opportunities, but then what kind of training can we also offer them?
I would love for you to kind of give us advice. So it's a take on my Kelly's podcast here. The Don't Do That. You guys should all be listening to that. One of the things that she asks people is like, what aren't we doing today? And as I'm listening to you explain about leadership and how we had to undo stuff, is there something that you can pick out in your mind? I agree with you. We were given I feel like we were thrown into the fire at times. I myself would have been so much better at certain situations if I would have had the right training, if I would have had the right mindset, if I would have had the right tools going in. Even just ChatGPT being a friend or Perplexity on my phone would have been better than, kind of going in, just being pushed into the fire. But is there any cream that kind of rises to the top as you're thinking of what we need to undo in terms of leadership? How our generation was
Yeah,
so
I mean, I
grossly
think
unprepared at times.
we it's like parenting. That's what I always
Yeah.
say. There was no real manual for this, so you do your best. But I think it's some of it is just getting back to the basics of human kindness and listening. And I think the younger generation is a lot smarter than we were in terms of being efficient. And it's not about always about FaceTime in the office, which was a huge, used to be a huge big deal. Are you there early? Are you there late? I think that is definitely part of it. But I get my ideas from just lots of different places, and it's not. I don't have like one specific piece of advice other than keep an open mind and also like change up what you're reading and what media you're consuming, because that's if you're just listening to the same thing and people that sound like you or look like you or talk like you're not really going to get other perspectives and ideas. I know when I travel, I'm kind of old school. I like magazines still, like real paper magazines, and I try to change up every year what I read. Like I drop something and then I add something. And right now I'm back on Wired magazine, which is, kind of tough sometimes to get through. But it sort of rotates back on every couple of years because I go, yeah, I missed that because I used to read some cool tech articles.
Well, one of the things I want to say is how you've been able to model a career and model that leadership in terms of how I mean, Carina, you have an MBA in finance, you're a certified financial planner, you're an accredited investment fiduciary. I think one of the things that I'm deeply curious about is like this next generation. It was so part of again, our upbringing, you know, get your undergrad, get your grad, get, your 65, get whatever. And depending on the career path, how important do you think it is for women, particularly who want to occupy the CEO role, for them to get additional certifications, education, MBA training, whatever that is?
I think it's very important, but not always for what you would think. So, certainly an MBA can give you some of the hard skills that you might need to be a CEO. All of those other ways to get those skills as well. But I think what I notice with younger women in particular, that having designations is a confidence builder. And it also can open doors, and it can open doors to networking, but it can just like, hey, I got my CFP. Like I often tell people, get the paraplanner if you're not sure about the CFP. The AIF is another one that you can get in a shorter period of time. I think Broadridge does excellent work with that AIF. I think it's underrated. I think more people should get it. But I think equally important is winning awards, doing speaking engagements, or writing articles if you're not maybe comfortable being public facing, because all of those things start to establish what you're about and your public persona, your reputation. And they also give you the opportunity to even think about what that should be. Because sometimes you don't really know, like until you're like in an interview like this, like, oh, is that what I do? Because you're talking about it with somebody else. But clients and also talent, if you're recruiting people, they want to be with a winner.
Hmm.
They want to be with a winner. They want to be with someone who stands for something. And so I think it's important that, if you get an opportunity to speak somewhere, if you get an opportunity to write an article, and you might say, well, hey, I'm not getting paid. I had a longtime girlfriend, top executive, PhD, and she said, you're wasting your time. You do all these speaking engagements for free, and they're taking advantage of you. And I really thought about it for a while. And then I decided she was wrong because
Good.
I get so much
Mm.
out of whenever I speak, like whether it's a podcast like this or, on stage, that I get so much. I mean, I feel like I'm giving back. Maybe someone will learn something from me. I know I sure as heck have learned so much from people who are generous enough to speak that I was able to listen to. And so don't ever underestimate the opportunity of speaking to your Chamber of Commerce or applying for that local award, maybe before a national award. Things like that, they really build your resume, but they also really build your confidence and your reputation.
Carina, I saw you win an award. I saw when we were at Excel Represent. Now we were there for a couple of years, right? But the last time I saw you, you were the recipient of an award. And again, I think that it shines a light and you weren't even, this wasn't even something that anybody could not, that you could nominate like everybody nominated you. And I think it's really, really important. I'm so glad that you said something, because sometimes as women, like, we're like, I don't want to, I don't want to put my name in this one. You didn't have to put your name in, other people did. But at the same time, I think it's so important. Investment News has their hot list. Like, I don't know when this episode will be out, in a couple of weeks. So unfortunately, one of the deadlines, although if they extend it, Think Advisor Luminary is a deadline right now. Investment News hot list we nominate our clients, and I even nominate people who aren't clients. Like, I'm happy to just see. I remember you were a winner. I remember Cheryl Hickerson of Females in Finance. And I remember that Carson really went through extraordinary efforts to shine a light on the people in the room who were doing great work. And again, for, all of us who are in the audience, it allows us to dig a little deeper, have a conversation with you and say, hey, wow, first of all, congratulations, high five, hugs, like, let's celebrate that moment. But I'm really hoping that the women, especially hearing this podcast right now, give yourself permission to nominate yourself or have somebody else nominate for you. And now, Carina and I would be happy to help you as well, too. One of the other things, I think one of the other bold ways that you've been able to show your leadership, Carina, has been in your own brand, right? You realize the power of a personal brand, whether that be a lot through your activity and the actions in the wealth management industry. But but you also formed Stella Segunda Partners before you were, at Greece for a period of time. So I wanted you to share a little bit about that step. Some women listening again I just literally talked to somebody the other day. She was actually someone I had dinner with last night. She was originally in supply chain, and now she's in manufacturing. She was this close, Carina, to starting her own consultancy, and she didn't do it. The job opportunity came her way. But, what advice would you share about Stella Segunda? And I have to know the meaning behind the name. I remember asking about it years ago, but it's been a while.
So Stella started, I had sold my firm and was, kind of in that limbo period where, like, what do I want to do when I grow up? What's next? And, I've always been known for succession matters and issues and some diversity issues, trying to bring younger people and people of color and women into the business. And in my mind, I wanted to have a business called Next Star, because I thought, like, it could just mean so many different things. But of course, there were a million firms that had Next Star in the title. And my significant other, Dr. John Goldsby, said to me, he goes, well, I wonder what that is in Latin. And there you go. And that's how Stella Segunda, which is it's like second star, but it was the closest to Next Star that I could find, and it kind of rolled off the tongue in a little alliteration. So that's the origin of the name. And I did some amazing work. I would say sometimes life brings unexpected situations, and I was like, okay, what do I want to do? I thought about the succession, and then what ended up happening was, in the couple of years that I was focusing on Stella, I can tell you honestly, I met more people and more interesting people than I had planned the prior 10 years, just different people I was meeting. And I got work that I never would have imagined. I mean, Progressive Insurance hired me to be a consultant for their financial wellness app called Stretch Financial. And it was like, I'm working for a startup fintech.
That is
how
so
crazy is that?
cool.
How crazy is that? And working with a very young, diverse team. And I mean, it was a phenomenal experience. And then I also, at that time, I ran Diversitas for the University of Akron, which was a national diversity program trying to get more people into wealth management, people from all different backgrounds. And I had been involved with Diversitas for years, but I actually ran it for that last year. And again, just what an opportunity. I mean, just unbelievable. So, and then GFP came calling. So it's just, you have to be okay reinventing yourself and thinking, okay, this is where I am now. Because remember what I said earlier, things will never be changing as slowly as they are now.
Well, the word slowly here, even before Stella Segunda, you also had 14 years at Flourish Women in Wealth. That's Carina, 14 years. That is a long, long time to be in one place. And, was, I guess, that the start of your women and finance? We're going to talk a little bit about your mom, who I know had a profound and amazing impact on your life, and I imagine everyone who touched, who she came in contact with. But 14 years is a slow time.
Yeah, I mean, I was working at the accounting firm SS&G. I was running their wealth company, and then I started Springside, the RIA. But while I was doing that, I started Flourish Women in Wealth, which, in its day was one of really the first educational programs for women about money. Now there's many great ones, but at the time it was unusual. And I had this vision of getting women together to talk about money in an unintimidating way, and I begged friends to come, so I had like 50 show up, and I bribed them with shrimp cocktail and wine, but it grew to be, we did dozens of programs. It was really it did become a big part of my brand. Ended up winding it down just on a very high note. But just, I got to the point I was like, what, as successful as this is, it did its work. It did its work. And now it's time for me to kind of shift a little bit. And I really started to double down on women's leadership. So not so much the financial end, which is still a part of what I do all the time. But I really started to double down on women's leadership. And that's really when I started what I call Diamond X, which is for graduate student women and teaching them leadership skills. And we're in year 6 on that, which is like shocking to me.
This is beautiful.
Okay.
This is incredibly inspiring to everybody that's listening right now.
So thank you.
You've done so much. We had touched upon your mom, and I'd like to talk about her. And I'm, again, very, very deeply sorry for her loss. We both come from powerful mothers who had a profound impact on our life. And I thought that it would really be worth it to spend some time. Her obituary is so inspiring, and she's a woman of high intellect, courage, adaptability, an extraordinary career. And I'm like, okay, so there's Carina, exactly in her mother's image.
Yeah, it's my mother was a refugee in World War II. She was in Estonia and ended up in the displaced persons camps, and ended up in America eventually, and in Ohio eventually, and that's where she met my dad. And I know I will never be able to understand what she went through, but I don't know if you've ever been to Fort Knox. I have not been to Fort Knox, but I have a vision of Fort Knox being like this place where there's like gold bars lined up. And I mention that because that's what our house was like. Like if you opened a cabinet, because of her war mentality, you would see like bags of sugar piled up, bags of flour. She was a baker, bags of chocolate chips, like lots. Some would call it hoarding today. She was planning, and she was going to protect her family. I thought that was just normal that people had 50 pounds of sugar in their basement.
That's so wild.
But I think that definitely influenced me in terms of being a planner, even just, I'm a certified financial planner, but just a planner generically, and hoping for the best, but planning for the worst and what can happen. So yeah, her loss is definitely pretty profound.
I love the legacy that our moms have left us. One quick secret here in the suite is this is episode 98. And mom's episode is 100. So so my mother, who I already started her questions because she's like, what do I have to say? What can I talk about? And I say, there's so much, Mom, that you can offer that I want to get on, like, that I want to document for so many reasons. And I already started the list on the phone. And I was like, oh, I could ask you about this and I could ask you about that. So it's an extraordinary gift. And I think it's, reasons why we both share, which why we see each other at those women's events, and even a women's event at an event. There are lots of things. Schwab just recently sponsored one such group, and I loved it. The women, there were both women and men there. And so really cool things. So what does your fall event schedule look like? I know we've got lots of things coming up. I'd love to hear if you're going to be anywhere in the future, and what's next. Like, what do the next 12 to 18 months look at GFP? Like, what's got you really excited right now?
Whew, it's a lot of questions.
I know.
It's no, it's all good. 12 to 18 months feels like a lot of time right now. Right now I'm focusing on the next 6 months here. We are having a major event in 2 weeks for clients at the Cleveland Museum of Art. We were a sponsor of the Takashi Murakami exhibit, I don't know if you know him, but he's like partnering with Louis Vuitton and Billie Eilish. And he's a very hot Japanese artist. So we already have several hundred people signed up. This is going to be a really big deal for us. So I'm focusing a lot of my energy on that. But I am always open to speaking at events. I was recently at CityWire out in San Diego and moderating a panel of female CIOs, which was extremely inspiring. So I'm always up for considering those kind of opportunities. And I really think if I think out to 12 to 18 months, for me, it's continuing to not even invest in, but use technology and use it deeper. And be more efficient, and continue to develop our people. We've been spending a lot of time with succession in terms of kind of matchmaking our more senior advisors with more junior advisors and then interns, and really solidifying that. And then we're also always open to, other advisors that want to join our firm, who share our culture. We get calls every day, and we are bringing on a couple other people in the near future. So that's always exciting, time consuming, but always very, very exciting.
Okay, so for those advisors listening, and for our other listeners who want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to follow your work before we ask our last question?
Yeah, I think, LinkedIn is probably the best way. So thank
Okay.
you for asking that.
Awesome. Wonderful. And everybody, we'll put a link in the show notes. I think that you had mentioned too, we talked a little bit about the certifications as well too. So all of the important links that Carina mentioned today, as well as, a link to her website, and so that you can check them out. You can check out GFP Private Wealth as well too. So, and one of the things before the last question, I just have to say, thank you very much for hosting events for your clients and making them special and memorable. Right now on the agency side, we are seeing events make a huge comeback, but the appetite for those events is something different. Like, people are really digging their heels into, how can I create an experience that's memorable? And so as advisors are looking to differentiate their practices, yes, if you host a client event that is memorable, bespoke, and we really put a lot of thought and intention, like what Karina's doing right now, this can really help you set yourself. So I'm going to think positive vibes. I know that it will go flawlessly, but what a great idea. I'm so inspired to hear that future direction.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, so before we wrap up, we know that I'm going to ask the question about, and this question ain't changing, ladies and gentlemen. You are talking to a stage 4 cancer survivor. So before we wrap up, this is our question. Can you share a personal health or lifestyle wellness tip that has significantly benefited you, that I know will benefit the people listening? Because you're in shape, Carina. Okay. If you're not watching the YouTube portion of this, I am looking at a woman who has always been you're tall, you're lean, you're in shape. You look like you've never ever, she's got biceps here, triceps here. You look like a person that has always been in shape.
Oh gosh, well, that's extremely kind. Believe me, a lot of effort. Yeah, honestly, the biggest thing, it might sound a little non-specific, but the biggest thing is that you have to change it up. You have to change it up every 6 to 12 months, whatever it is, whether it's your diet, your exercise routine. And also, don't be afraid to intentionally build your not your board of advisors, but kind of like the team around you. Like, so for me, I just switched chiropractors. I just that is something that's very, very important to me. I hired a concierge doctor. I started just scheduling my yoga because I found that I was just working late and missing it. And I was like, no, I am not doing that. I am going to that 5 o'clock class on Monday. Sorry, if you're listening to this, wondering where I am, but that's where I'm going to be because if I don't schedule it. But I do mix it up. Every year, I kind of reevaluate what I'm doing for myself and supplements, my diet, who I spend time with. And I have found that has been probably works for me. If there's a success here, that's a secret to my success, is just challenging myself. Does it really still make sense to be gluten-free? Yes, it does, by the way. Um, but whatever else it is, don't be afraid to ask yourself, does this still make sense? Is there something better?
I'm so inspired by that, this common theme of changing things up. You have so inspired me. I'm going to change things up too now because I'm like, on the workout side, right? I think that could be really exciting, Carina. Thank you so much for that tip. And thank you so much for all of the insights and the value of this conversation. Because here's what I know. It's going to be out in August of 2025. You, as a female leader, have, what is it, 5 months. Like the end of the year is flying. And this is exactly the kind of episode that you need to hear midway through so that it's like, oh, I just listened to Carina Diamond. Time to change things up. I love it. I love it. Thank you so, so much.
Oh, always a pleasure, Tina. Thanks so much for inviting me on.